Hi, everybody. I wanted to share some information that I recently discovered. And as most of you know, right now I'm concentrating on the Tainos. So the information is all about them. This information was actually published in 2013, but it sort of blew my mind. So the Tainos were distributed all around the Iberian Peninsula, but they also ended up in other places in Europe, including Italy, which ironically, many of our most, I'm going to say, astounding pieces of the Taino culture are still housed in Italy. But there was one place in particular where evidence of Tainos were found, and the place they were found was the Vatican. And as this article notes, in a cleaning of one of the frescoes under dust that had been there for centuries, slowly was revealed a group of naked figures. They wore feathered headdresses and they seemed to be dancing. There's one man who is more in the front, and this is the image. And as we can see, it's a pretty large fresco. It's not small. They began cleaning this in 2006. And they spent 7 years restoring this. Right here in the middle, right behind this figure here, and they came to the conclusion that this image, and I'll show you a close-up, that this image right here is actually the earliest image ever recorded of Tainos or Native Americans in Europe. The image itself is called Resurrection of Christ and is by the Renaissance painter Bernardino di Beto. And it was located inside the apartment of Pope Alexander VI, or the Borgia Pope. He was a Spanish pope whose reign was really marked by craziness and a lot of mayhem. So when Colon came back and announced what he had found, this fresco was in full swing, being painted at the time. We know that it was painted between 1492 and 1494, so it took 2 years to make this painting. Colon returned to Europe on March 15, 1493. He then wrote a letter describing what he had found, and it was republished multiple times, so it circulated widely all around Europe. And by mid-1493, people were reciting this letter in the form of poems and songs all over the streets of Rome and Florence. And not only did he write a letter, but he had brought back natives to the Spanish king and queen. 6 of them managed to survive the trip. We know that the Tainos were displayed in court and in several public ceremonies. We even know that they were marched through the streets of Barcelona to be looked at. And the ripples of excitement and wonder just ran through Barcelona, but it also ran to the Pope. The idea of riches and cheap labor attracted the corrupted Pope Alexander VI, and so he sent out a bull or a papal order that would then become the basis for the Treaty of Tordesillas of 1494, in which he divided the New World between Portugal and Spain. And that Columbus letter that mentioned all the riches and gold that were soon to be in Spanish hands gave the Pope more of an incentive to support what was happening. Because if Spain was great, so was he as a Spanish Pope. The expansion of the Catholic faith would give him more power and more influence. So we can imagine the Pope reading Columbus's descriptions about the people he had kidnapped, and then hearing firsthand accounts of the people who saw them at court. Because we know that at least one of them stayed in Spain, learned the language, and learned the culture. And his name was changed to Diego Colon. El Indio Diego Colon was basically adopted by Columbus. And many believe that this main figure here was Diego. And since this painting was already being painted at the time that Columbus came back, there is a great suspicion that the images of the Tainos were added last minute to this mural. This mural represented the sanctity of this pope, but it seems like he couldn't help include in the tiniest spot
his wish for more power. Pope Alexander VI died in 1503, the same year that Anacaona was hung in Santo Domingo, and the same year that Nicolás de Ovando invaded Higüey for the second time, all because of the authority this pope gave himself. His reputation became so notorious that when he died, his apartments were closed, sealed off for 400 years. And so the image of these first Tainos were also locked away. But their descendants now are trying so hard to revive who they were, their culture, everything they represented. And it was one of their descendants, Jose Barreiro, who actually wrote this article. And at the time, he was actually a Smithsonian scholar. He continues to be a member of the Taino Nation. He is also the author of several books, including Taino, which is a novel based on the life of El Indio Diego Colon. But if you would like to read the full article, you can easily find it online. Issues winter 2013, and it was published in the magazine American Indian from the Smithsonian's National Museum of the American Indian. And this magazine still exists. This is the current issue, summer 2025, and it has so many different topics talking about the different Native Americans all across the Americas.